Have you ever made a promise, not to survive, but to protect someone else? Emma Carter did. She was 24, a pianist with quiet dreams, until her father died holding a truth no one believed. And the man who once blamed her made an offer: marry him. For 1 year, in return, her mother would receive care. Her brother could stay in college. But what happens when the man you fear begins to fall apart? When behind his silence, you see grief deeper than your own, would you run or stay? And if you chose to stay, not because of duty, but because something in you knew he needed saving too, what would that make you? This is not a story about money. It is a story about silence, about memory, about a love that began with a contract, but grew into something real. Stay here. You will feel something, maybe more than you expect. The morning sky over Cedar Falls was a washed-out gray, the kind of sky that made everything feel heavier than it already was. Emma Carter sat in the kitchen of her childhood home, wrapping her hands around a chipped blue mug. Steam from the coffee curled toward her face, but she could not feel its warmth. The radio played softly. Old country, her father's favorite. It had not been turned off since he was taken away. Her mother, Helen, was asleep upstairs. The medication helped with the pain in her chest, but it also made her sleep too long, too deep. Emma checked her phone. No calls, no texts, just the waiting. 2 weeks ago, her father, Thomas Carter, had been arrested, federal charges, financial misconduct, a scandal that reached into government defense contracts. Emma remembered the night like a bad recording. The knock at the door, the agents, her father's calm voice as they handcuffed him. He had turned to her and said just one thing: take care of your mother, and do not believe everything they say. Since that night, everything had unraveled. Her scholarship at the University of Chicago was frozen. The house had received its first foreclosure notice. The insurance company refused to cover her mother's heart treatment due to the pending investigation. And her little sister, Lily, just 12, had stopped speaking in full sentences. Emma had no savings, just her hands, and the way they moved on piano keys. But piano could not buy medication, and it certainly could not erase a federal case. She stood up and poured out the cold coffee. Then the doorbell rang. It was not the police this time. 2 men in dark suits stood at the porch. Not government issue, too polished, too composed. The older one introduced himself. Mr. Whitaker, legal representative of Shaw Quantum Systems. Emma blinked. The tech company. He nodded. May we come in? She hesitated. But something in his voice, controlled, yet not threatening, made her open the door. They sat at the same kitchen table where her father used to do Sunday crosswords. Whitaker opened a leather folder and slid a single envelope across to her. She opened it with slow fingers. Inside was a letter. Handwritten, precise. Miss Carter, my name is Declan Shaw. I understand your family is facing irreversible consequences following the arrest of your father. I am offering you a proposal. You may choose to ignore this, but I suggest you read carefully. If you agree to enter into a legally binding marriage with me for the term of 12 months, I will ensure the following: all charges against your father will be dropped or reduced through intervention. Your mother's treatment and full medical care will be covered without limit. Your sister will be placed in the best private education of your choosing. The marriage is legal. But personal expectations will not be imposed. You will be treated with respect and privacy. You are free to walk away after 1 year. I ask only that you maintain appearances when required. If you accept, you will be picked up tomorrow at 10 a.m. There will be no second offer. Emma read the letter twice, then once more. Her pulse pounded in her ears. Why, she asked. Her voice cracked. Why would he do this? Whitaker gave no expression. I am not at liberty to discuss the personal motives of Mr. Shaw. Does he even know me? He knows enough. Emma looked down at the paper. The penmanship was strong, cold, almost mechanical. Who does something like this? Whitaker folded his hands. Someone who believes in keeping his promises. That is all I can say. She did not remember what she said next, or how they left. She stood at the kitchen window for a long time, watching the neighboress' wind chime move in the wind. It had belonged to Mrs. Dugan. She passed away last fall. The chime kept ringing anyway. Later that night, she sat on the front steps with a blanket around her shoulders. The air was cool, quiet. She thought of her father, his laugh when he danced with her mother in the kitchen, how he tuned her first piano with nothing but a screwdriver and a prayer, how he told her once, Emma, sometimes you are going to have to do things that hurt, not because they are wrong, but because they are the only way to keep what is right. At 2 a.m., she wrote a short note. She placed it on the fridge with a magnet that said, Do small things with great love. Then she packed one small bag. At 9:55 a.m. the next morning, a black SUV pulled into the driveway. She stepped inside without a word. The man in the driver's seat looked at her in the rearview mirror. Ready. Miss Carter. She nodded once. But the truth was, she was not. And maybe she never would be. The drive from Cedar Falls to Aspen took nearly 14 hours. But Emma remembered none of it. She stared out the window. Snow blanketed the Rockies like quiet prayers. Every curve of the mountain road felt like it was leading her farther away from herself. When they reached the gate, the car stopped. Steel and stone. A long, winding driveway disappeared into pine trees. The mountains loomed like silent witnesses. A second car was waiting near the entrance. The driver motioned for her to switch vehicles. She stepped into the back seat. This one was warmer, quieter, more expensive. Across from her sat a man in a charcoal gray suit, Declan Shaw. He looked younger than she expected. Mid-30s, maybe. His eyes were a shade of gray, so pale, they seemed to see through her. He did not offer a smile. Miss Carter, he said, I hope the trip was manageable. She nodded. He said nothing more. The silence between them was not awkward. It was something else, like a contract neither of them had signed with their hearts. They arrived at a small private courthouse. No flowers, no guests, no photographs, just a judge, 2 attorneys, and a brief exchange of rings. Emma's ring was simple, a platinum band with no engraving. Declan's voice did not shake. He did not glance at her during the ceremony. He said, I do like he was confirming a transaction. When it was her turn, Emma paused. Her throat was dry, but she said it anyway. I do. The judge signed the papers. The attorneys gathered them. No one clapped. As they walked out, Declan turned to her. My jet is waiting. We will be home by nightfall. She blinked. Home. He glanced at his watch. Shaw Estate. You will reside there for the duration of our agreement. You never mentioned I would be living with you. Declan finally looked her in the eyes. I assumed that was understood. We are legally married. Appearances matter. His tone was calm, cold, but his jaw tightened slightly. The only sign he might not be made of stone. Emma followed him to the car. She wanted to ask so many things. Why? Her why now? What had her father done to deserve all this? But the questions stayed buried, like snow over wounds that had not yet stopped bleeding. They landed in Aspen, under a veil of falling snow. The property was massive, modern, glass and steel cut into the side of the mountain like it was carved for a king. The inside was quiet, too quiet. A housekeeper named Marion greeted her with a kind nod. "Dinner is at 6. Mr. Shaw expects punctuality." Emma was led to a suite larger than the entire downstairs of her family house. Neutral tones, clean lines, no photos, no music, nothing that told her anything about who Declan really was. There was a note on the dresser. "You will have privacy. Please feel free to use any part of the East Wing. D.S." Emma stood by the window. The view looked out over a frozen lake, the kind of place people visited on postcards, but it felt like a cage made of glass. She tried to breathe, to make sense of the day. This was not a love story. It was not even a story yet. It was survival, and she had to be strong. For her mother, for Lily. For the father who was somewhere in a cold cell because of a truth no one had dared to speak. That night, she sat across from Declan at a table built for 20. Only 2 seats were set. The meal was perfect. And tasteless. He did not ask her anything. He answered his phone twice, never looked at her. Halfway through the main course, Emma put her fork down. Is this how every meal will be? Declan looked up. It took him a second to realize she had spoken. "I rarely eat at home. You are free to dine whenever you wish." She exhaled. "How thoughtful," she said, flatly. He looked at her, almost amused. "Did you expect candlelight and conversation, Mrs. Shaw?" She stared at him. "I expected basic human decency. And for the record, I will keep my last name." "As you wish," he said. After dinner, Marion led her back to her room. The bed was already turned down. On the silk sheets lay a nightgown in ivory. She stared at it, not because it was beautiful, but because it made the contract feel real. She did not sleep. Only when the clock reached 1:00 did she hear soft footsteps in the hallway, then a knock, not loud, but unmistakable. She stood, her breath shallow. The door opened. Declan stepped inside. No suit, no tie, just the man behind all the ice. He looked at her for a long moment, then said quietly, "I will not touch you unless you ask me to." And then he turned and left, leaving her with nothing but silence and more questions than ever before. The next morning, the sunlight touched the snowy ridges like gold dust, but inside the Shaw estate, everything remained cold. Emma woke early. She had not really slept. The silence in the room had a weight, a silence that did not soothe. It pressed down like a secret waiting to be spoken. She pulled on a thick sweater and jeans, found coffee in the kitchen, already brewed, but no one in sight. Marion had left a note. "Mr. Shaw is in meetings until late evening. Lunch will be brought to your suite. No mention of breakfast. No warmth in the handwriting." Emma wandered the East Wing. The ceilings were tall, the walls bare, a few framed photographs of mountain landscapes. No people, no stories. She passed a room with double oak doors. They were slightly open. Inside was a grand piano, black, polished, silent. The room smelled faintly of cedar and thyme. She stepped inside. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over the frozen lake. A hawk circled above the tree line in the distance. She ran her fingers over the keys. The piano was perfectly tuned. She sat and played. Not a full piece, just fragments. A few bars of Chopin, a hint of Debussy, Simple, soft, the sound filled the empty house. And, for a moment, it did not feel so hollow. She came back the next morning. And the morning after that, always, when she was sure Declan was not there. It became her rhythm, coffee, silence, then the piano. By the fifth day, she no longer played fragments. She played what she remembered from childhood, from college, from dreams she had locked away when her life unraveled. She poured herself into the music because there was nothing else to hold on to. But what she did not know was that someone else was listening. Declan stood just outside the door, every morning, never stepping in, never saying a word. He leaned against the wall, one hand in his pocket, eyes closed. The music reached something in him, something he had long buried. He remembered Skylar, his little sister, playing the same piece on rainy afternoons. Her laugh, her clumsy fingers dancing on the ivory keys. She had begged their father for that piano. Their father had refused. Declan bought it for her anyway, and promised to protect her. A promise he had not kept. That afternoon, Emma passed Declan in the hallway. They exchanged a glance. Just a glance, no words. But in his eyes, something had changed. That night, Emma stood at the window in her suite. The lake below shimmered with moonlight. She spotted a lone figure at the edge of the dock. Declan, still, silent, hands in his coat pockets, staring at the water like it might speak back. Emma watched him for a long time. Then she did something unexpected. She walked downstairs, through the corridor, out the back door. The cold hit her skin like needles. She tightened her coat and walked toward the dock. Declan did not turn. "You do not sleep, either?" she asked. "No." Silence. She stepped beside him. Not close, just beside. "The piano," he said after a while. It was hers. Emma looked at him. "Your sister." He nodded. "She died when she was 17. The piano sat silent ever since." "I am sorry." He nodded again. Slowly. "I used to stand outside that door." Just to hear it again. Why not come in? He looked at her. And for the first time she saw something behind his eyes. Not just cold, but pain. "Some things," he said, "feel safer from a distance." Emma did not press. She just stood with him, breathing the same cold air. That night, she could not play. Her hands trembled. The next morning, Marian brought her breakfast, along with a leather-bound book, a collection of Chopin's early manuscripts. No note, but she knew who it was from. She opened it slowly. One page had a small mark in pencil, Skylar's handwriting, a tiny star next to a passage. "This one always feels like falling in love." Emma traced the star with her fingertip. She smiled and cried, quietly. That evening, she played it, and Declan stood outside the door. But this time, he stepped in. He said nothing, just listened. Then, as the final note faded, he turned to leave. But before he did, he whispered, "Thank you." Snow fell again the next morning, thick, gentle, almost soundless. Emma sat in the music room with the Chopin book open across her lap. The house was so still. It felt as if time had stopped. She played softly, the same piece Skylar had marked. Her fingers moved slowly, carefully, not just for the notes, but for the feeling. Somewhere behind her. The door creaked. She knew he was there. Declan stepped inside, quiet as a shadow. He said nothing. She kept playing, not for him, not even for Skylar, but because it was the only way she knew how to breathe. When the final note settled into silence, She closed the book. Declan stood near the fireplace. His hands were in his pockets, but his shoulders were relaxed, less guarded. You play differently than she did, he said. Emma nodded. I never met her, but I feel like I have. He walked slowly toward the piano, stopped a few feet away. She was brighter than I ever deserved to protect. Emma glanced at him. He looked tired, not in the physical sense, but the kind of tired that comes from years of carrying something too heavy. She trusted people, he said. She saw the good, even where it did not exist. His voice broke slightly, just enough to feel real. Emma stood, gently closing the piano lid. You tried to keep her safe, she said. He did not respond, but his silence said everything. Outside, wind stirred the snow into flurries. Inside, the two of them stood on opposite sides of a shared ache. I want to ask something, Emma said quietly. Declan looked at her. His gaze held steady. Why me? She asked. It was not angry, not accusing, just honest. He exhaled. There was a report. He began 8 years ago, buried after a single week. Your father tried to expose what happened in that center. Emma's heart stilled. He was an investigator. She whispered, yes, a junior agent. He filed concerns, was pulled from the case, transferred, and later disappeared from every record. She swallowed hard. I never knew. Declan looked down. I thought, maybe. This arrangement would give me a kind of justice. Emma blinked. By punishing his daughter, his jaw clenched. It was not meant to be punishment. He paused. I wanted control over something, anything. He stepped closer. I expected you to resent me, to play along, wait out the year. Emma met his gaze, and now Declan hesitated. The silence between them stretched, then, slowly, he raised a hand, not quickly, not dramatically, just careful. He reached for her face, paused, waited for permission. Emma did not move. His fingers brushed her cheek, light as snow, warm, present. Her breath caught. It was not a romantic gesture. It was not about possession. It was about memory and loss and something new, struggling to be born. Their eyes locked. She saw something shift in him, a softness, a surrender. Then he stepped back, the connection broken. This is not what I expected, he said quietly. Emma wrapped her arms around herself. What did you expect? He shook his head. A business arrangement. Distance, control. She watched him carefully. And now that it feels like something else, Declan turned toward the door. I do not know what this is anymore. Then he left. Emma stood alone in the room. The music still echoed, even though no notes were played. She pressed a hand to her chest. Her heart beat fast, not because of fear, but because for the first time in a long while, something inside her had stirred, something like trust. 3 days passed in quiet rhythm. Emma played the piano each morning. Declan listened sometimes from inside the room, sometimes just outside. He rarely spoke, but his silence had softened. It no longer carried ice, just gravity. They shared dinner once, not as husband and wife, but as two people learning how to exist in the same space. No questions, no pressure. Yet a tension hung in the air, like something unsaid was always on the verge of surfacing. It happened on the 5th day. By accident, Emma was exploring the West Wing, Declan's side of the house. Marian had said nothing was off limits. But Emma still moved carefully, quietly. She passed rooms that felt untouched. A study filled with first edition books, a library with shelves taller than the doorframe, a guest room that smelled faintly of cedar and rain, then a hallway. At the end of it, a single door, dark wood, brass handle, locked. She reached for it. It did not budge. Her hand lingered. Something about the door felt different, not just locked. Hidden. She stepped back. The next morning, she asked Marion casually, "There is a room in the west wing. Door is locked. Do you know what it is?" Marion hesitated. A rare pause from her usual poise. "I believe that was Miss Skylar S. room." Emma blinked. "No one goes in there," Marion added quietly. "Mr. Shaw keeps the key himself." Emma said nothing. But something stirred inside her. That night, after dinner, Declan left for a video call with international partners. Emma passed his office. The door was cracked open. He was inside, talking, his tone firm, controlled. His coat was draped over the back of the chair. She stepped closer, quiet as breath. Her fingers slipped into the coat pocket. Cold metal. A key. She froze. A voice in her whispered to stop, but the other voice, the one that had always chased truth, spoke louder. She slipped away down the hallway, key clenched in her fist. At the end of the corridor, she turned the lock. The door opened with a soft click. It smelled like time, like dust and forgotten music. Skylar's room, soft blues, white curtains, a bookshelf by the window, a violin on a stand, a pair of worn ballet slippers beneath the bed, and a journal, sitting on the nightstand, untouched. Emma closed the door behind her, sat on the bed, opened the cover. Inside, Skylar's handwriting, round, young, eager, March 3rd. "I told Declan about the center today. He got really quiet. I do not think he believes me, but he wants to. I can feel it. March 9th. That girl in room 12. Her bruises are worse. I heard the staff yelling again. Someone needs to say something. March 15th. Agent Carter came today. I do not know his first name, but he listened. Really listened. He told me to write down everything. He said to be brave." Emma's breath caught. She kept reading. March 21st. They found my notes. They took my violin, threatened to cut me off from Declan. I am scared, but Agent Carter says he is trying to find help from inside. March 29th. I do not think I will make it out of here. A tear fell on the page. Emma turned to the last entry. April 2nd. If anyone finds this, please find Declan. And thank Agent Carter. He believed me when no one else did. Emma sat still for a long time. The room pulsed with memory. Skylar had been trying to speak, to warn, to reach someone. Her father had heard her, had believed her, and someone had silenced both of them. She stood up slowly, placed the journal into her coat. She locked the door again, returned the key to Declan's coat pocket. He never noticed, but later that night, at dinner, he looked at her differently, as if he sensed something had changed. Emma said nothing, but her heart had shifted. This was no longer about surviving the year. This was about truth, about justice, about a girl who died with music still inside her. That night, Emma lay awake in bed, the journal on her nightstand, a storm building in her chest. Her thoughts spiraled. If Declan truly knew, why had he never spoken of it? If he did not know, why did he marry her? She stared at the ceiling. The house groaned as wind pushed against its walls. She felt it now, the weight of everything unsaid. Morning came quietly. The sky was low, a soft shade of pearl, and the lake looked like a mirror of ice. Emma sat by the window with Skylar's journal in her lap. She had read it twice during the night, not out of curiosity, but from something deeper. A silent promise forming inside her. The girl who had written these words. She was not a shadow. She had been real, bright, brave, and forgotten. Not anymore. Declan did not appear at breakfast. Marian only said, "He is in the West Wing." Emma tucked the journal into her coat pocket and walked the corridor. She found him in the small reading room with the fireplace. Logs crackled softly. He stood by the window, hands folded behind his back. He did not turn when she entered. "I used to read to her here," he said. Skylar loved fantasy stories, even when she was too old for them. Emma stepped closer. "She wrote about you," she said gently. He turned, slowly. "In her journal," she added. "She mentioned you often." Declan's eyes darkened, but not from anger, from something more fragile. "I did not know it still existed," he said. Emma pulled the book from her pocket, held it out. He took it with both hands, handled it like something sacred. He opened to the page, marked April 2nd, read in silence. When he finally spoke, his voice was low. She was scared, and I missed it. Emma sat in the chair beside the fire. "She did not blame you." He looked at her. "She thanked you. Said you believed her more than anyone else." His eyes fell to the page again. "I should have listened better. Looked closer." "Been there." Emma shook her head. "She trusted you." "That is clear." Declan sat down across from her. His posture slouched for the first time, as if the weight of guilt had finally settled into his spine. "What do you want to know?" he asked. Emma hesitated, but then the words came. "My father," she said. "Did you know he was involved back then?" Declan nodded. "I had heard his name, but I did not connect it to you until I saw the case file years later. After everything was buried." "You could have told me." "I could have," he admitted. "But I thought if I kept you at arm's length, it would be simpler." She looked at him. Was this marriage a punishment? He met her eyes. "Maybe at first," he said. "Not for you, but for myself." Emma blinked. "I needed someone to witness what I could not say aloud. Someone who might understand what it means to carry silence for too long." She leaned back in her chair. The fire popped. A soft ember floated upward. "I do understand," she said. Declan looked surprised. "I thought I hated you when this started," she continued. "I thought you were just another man who wanted to own something broken. But now," she looked out the window, "now I think you are broken too, just differently." Neither of them spoke for a long time. Then Declan whispered, "I found something." Emma turned. "In my father's old files," he said. He had saved copies of Skylar's application forms. But there were discrepancies, dates that did not line up, and a name. Emma leaned forward. "Maxwell Donovan." Emma froze. "He is still on your board," she said. "Yes, and he has more power than he should." Declan stood, pacing now. He was the one who pushed for Skylar to enter that facility, said it would discipline her creativity, said it would help her focus. Emma's voice grew cold. "And you believed him? I was 24. My father trusted him, and I did not question enough." He turned to face her. "I think Maxwell silenced the report your father wrote. I think he had connections inside the agency." Emma stood too. "Then we need to find out what else he is hiding." Declan watched her. His voice, when it came, was soft. "You are not afraid," she shook her head. "I am tired of being afraid." They stood in silence, not as enemies, not as strangers, but as two people finally choosing to face the storm together. Later that night, Emma returned to the music room. Declan followed. She began to play, not Chopin this time, but a melody of her own, something gentle, open, a whisper of truth in the form of sound. He sat near the fireplace, listening. When the music ended, he spoke quietly. "Would you stay?" After the year is over, she looked at him. "I do not know yet," she said honestly, "but I am not leaving tomorrow." He nodded. That was enough. For now. The invitation arrived by courier. Heavy envelope, cream cardstock, raised lettering, a charity gala in San Francisco, hosted by the Shaw Quantum Foundation. Declan was expected to attend, and so was Emma. It would be their first public appearance as husband and wife. "You do not have to go," Declan said that evening. Emma set the invitation on the table between them. "I want to." He studied her face, not for agreement, but for conviction. She gave it to him. A week later, they boarded the company jet. Emma wore a deep navy dress and a quiet kind of grace. Declan, in a black suit, looked sharper than usual, but also more human. On the flight, they said little, but the silence was no longer a wall. It was a space they had both agreed to share. The Fairmont Hotel sparkled under the city lights. Reporters lined the walkway. Cameras flashed. When Declan stepped out of the car, he turned and offered his hand to Emma. She took it. His touch was steady. They walked inside together. The ballroom was filled with powerful people, investors, scientists, politicians. Emma stayed close, but not clingy. She smiled politely, spoke when spoken to, listened more than she talked. Maxwell Donovan arrived late, tall, silver-haired, a suit too perfect. He greeted Declan with an arm clasp. "Nephew," he said smoothly, then turned to Emma and the mysterious bride. "Finally, we meet." Emma extended her hand. Maxwell took it, but not warmly. "I must admit," he said with a practiced smile, "I did not expect Declan to settle down, especially not with a music teacher." Emma met his gaze. "Neither did I," she said, "but life has a rhythm of its own." Declan almost smiled. Later, during dinner, a board member leaned toward Emma. "I heard you play piano," the woman said. "Would you consider performing something for us?" Emma hesitated. Before she could answer, Declan spoke. "My wife is not here to perform." Emma turned to him, surprised by the protectiveness in his tone, but she placed a hand gently on his arm. "I would like to," she said. He looked at her, searched her eyes, then nodded once. She stepped onto the small stage, sat at the grand piano. For a moment, the room disappeared. She played a piece Skylar had once marked. It began softly, but grew, layered, brave, laced with memory and hope. When the final note faded, the room broke into applause. Emma returned to the table. Maxwell raised his glass. "To talent," he said, "but talent does not always translate into legacy." Declan's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Later, they danced, a waltz, his hand on her waist, her hand on his shoulder. They moved as if they had always known how. "Thank you," Declan murmured. "For what?" "For reminding them who you are." Emma leaned closer. "They are watching us. You know." "I know. And you are letting them." His voice lowered. "Perception is reality. And tonight, you made them believe." Emma paused. "Is this still just strategy?" He looked at her. "I do not know anymore." They danced in silence. That night, in the elevator, Emma looked at him. "Declan," she said, "I need to tell you something." But the elevator doors opened. A message was waiting at the suite. From his assistant. Urgent meeting. Confidential. Information leak suspected. Declan tensed. We leave now. They packed in 10 minutes. By the time they reached the highway north, the rain had started. Heavy, blinding. Emma opened her mouth to speak again about what she had overheard near the ballroom. Whispers of falsified records, a planned takedown, a scandal. But Declan was gripping the steering wheel too tight. "Let me drive," she offered. "No," he said. "We are almost clear of the storm." They never got that far. The turn came too fast. The road was slick. The car slid. Glass. Metal. Screeching. Then nothing. When Emma opened her eyes, everything was upside down. She could not feel her right arm. Rain poured through the broken windshield. Declan, no answer. She crawled toward him. He was unconscious. Blood on his temple. The driver S's side, crushed inward. Her hands shook as she reached for his pulse, still beating. Then headlights appeared on the road. A passing truck slowed. Help came. Lights, voices, sirens, at the hospital. Emma waited outside the operating room. Blood stained her sleeves. But she refused to change. Hours passed. Finally, the doctor came out. "He is stable," he said, "but he has a subdural hematoma. Pressure on the brain." Emma nodded, barely hearing. "If he wakes up," she whispered. "There is hope," the doctor said gently. She sat in the corner of the ICU room. Declan lay still, machines humming beside him. His face was pale. She reached for his hand. "Come back," she whispered. "We are not finished yet." Then she pulled a small object from her coat, a USB drive. She had taken it from his briefcase after the crash. Because she had seen Maxwell's signature on the files. Because something had not felt right for weeks. She plugged it into her laptop, the screen filled with numbers, dates, transactions, and a name. Thomas Carter, her father, over and over again, but then inconsistencies, signatures that did not match, dates after he had lost access, digital stamps that made no sense. Emma leaned closer, her heart pounding. It was a frame job. Someone had manipulated the files to make her father the scapegoat. And now she had the proof. The rain had not stopped. It pounded against the windows of San Francisco General Hospital like it had something to say. Emma sat in the corner of Declan S. ICU room, her back straight despite the ache in her shoulders. The USB drive was clutched tightly in her hand. Her laptop sat open beside her. Files spread across the screen like a puzzle made from pain. Declan remained unconscious, tubes in his arms, a monitor blinking beside him. She had not left since they wheeled him out of surgery. The door creaked open. Vanessa stepped in, hair wet, suit rumpled, a crack in her perfect armor. "This is your fault," she said. Her voice was raw. Emma stood slowly. "What did you say if you had not distracted him? If you had not dragged him into—" "I heard you," Emma cut in. "Back at the gala, with Maxwell, talking about leaked documents, planning something." Vanessa blinked. But only for a moment. Then her face hardened. "You misunderstood." "Did I?" Emma stepped closer. "You have no idea what you are involved in." "Then explain it," Emma said. Silence. Vanessa looked at Declan. "He is not built for this kind of betrayal," she whispered. Emma's voice softened. "Then stop helping the people who hurt him." A nurse entered, checking Declan's vitals. Vanessa stepped back. When they were alone again, Vanessa smoothed her hair. "I have arranged for his personal physician to take over care." Emma folded her arms. "I am not leaving. Your contract does not include staying here." Emma stared at her. "Then consider this an amendment." Vanessa said nothing, just turned and walked out. Emma sat back down, opened her laptop again, scrolled through the files. Her fingers paused on a folder marked Audit, Carter, March 2017. She clicked Transaction Logs, Electronic Signatures, but something was wrong. Her father's access had been revoked on March 12th. Yet 3 high-level transfers were logged on March 16th, 18, and 20. Impossible. She checked the digital fingerprints, all traced back to an internal IP, an executive-level override. Someone else had used his name. She reached for her phone, dialed. The line rang once. Emma, a familiar voice, answered. It was Dr. Raymond Chun, the neurosurgeon and longtime friend of Declan. Dr. Chun, I need your help. She explained everything. The files, the discrepancies, the suspicion. He listened quietly. I know someone who can look deeper, he said. My brother works with the Financial Crimes Division at the FBI. Emma froze. You trust him? With my life. She emailed the files. That night, Dr. Chun visited Declan. He checked vitals, adjusted medication, then turned to Emma. I never thought I would see him like this again. Emma looked up. You said, again, Dr. Chun hesitated. After Skylar died, he disappeared for almost a year. No contact, no public appearances. Just vanished. Emma's voice cracked. And now Dr. Chun smiled gently. Now he has someone sitting at his bedside instead of shutting the world out. Emma touched Declan's hand. I am not going anywhere. The next morning, sunlight finally broke through the storm clouds. Emma dozed for a moment in the chair. A soft sound woke her. The monitor beeped. Declan's fingers twitched. Her heart leapt. She leaned forward. Declan, his eyelids fluttered. A wince. A whisper. What happened? You are safe, she said. There was an accident. You have been unconscious for almost 2 days. He blinked, tried to sit up, groaned. Do not, she said gently. Take it slow. He looked at her, eyes heavy, but searching. My jacket, he said weakly. What? He nodded toward the corner. Inside pocket. Take it out. She found it, reached in, pulled out a second USB drive. He closed his eyes. Keep it safe. Do not trust a coughing fit. Cut him off. Emma squeezed his hand. Rest. I already found the other one, and I am working on it. His eyes fluttered closed again. But not from fear. From trust. Emma walked to the hallway. Dialed Dr. Chun again. We need to talk to the FBI, she said. Now. Hours later, she met Agent Andrew Chun in a quiet corner of the hospital cafeteria. He reviewed the files on her laptop, with growing tension in his jaw. These are clean enough to take to court, he said. Your father was framed. And I think I know who did it. Maxwell Donovan. Emma said, yes. His name shows up across too many transactions, and the overrides came from his executive branch. Emma swallowed. What do we do? Andrew leaned back. We gather every file, every timestamp, and we build the case. Emma closed the laptop, and then we take him down. Later that evening, she returned to Declan's room. He was still asleep, but his face was calmer, less haunted. She sat by the window. The sky outside had turned soft gold. A new day. And maybe a new truth. She looked at him. We are almost there, she whispered. Just hold on a little longer. A week later, the boardroom at Shaw Quantum headquarters was silent. Tension filled the polished walls like smoke no one could see. Emma sat near the end of the table, her hands folded in her lap. Declan sat beside her, still pale from the crash. A faint scar curved along his right temple, but his posture was straight, his voice clear. Across from them sat Maxwell Donovan. He looked as perfect as ever, not a single hair out of place. His eyes moved across the board members with easy confidence. "You have called this meeting," he said to Declan, "yet I fail to see what could not wait until next quarter S review." Declan said nothing. Instead, he nodded toward the door. Agent Andrew Chun entered, followed by a legal officer and 2 agents with black folders. Maxwell's smile faltered. Slightly, Emma stood. She walked to the front of the room, placed a small laptop on the table. "This," she said, "is the transaction trail linked to my father's name, Thomas Carter." The board shifted in their chairs. She continued, "These files show large-scale embezzlement of company funds beginning in 2017. On paper, it appears my father executed these transactions." She clicked the touchpad, pulled up digital timestamps, signature logs, "But this data," she said, "proves otherwise." She pointed to a graph, dates of access after her father's clearance had been revoked, IP addresses traced back to Maxwell's executive office. Agent Chun spoke, "These documents were buried under falsified audit reports, all authorized under executive override by Mr. Donovan." Gasps broke the silence. Maxwell stood. "This is absurd. Fabricated. Nothing more than a revenge stunt." Declan spoke for the first time. "Then you will not mind us showing the security footage." Maxwell blinked. Declan nodded again. Emma clicked again. The screen showed grainy black and white footage inside a server room. A man with silver hair inputting admin credentials, time-stamped, logged, followed by a second clip audio only. Maxwell's voice, "You will confess, or your daughter's medical school offer vanishes. Your son's scholarship, your wife's coverage, all gone." Emma's eyes burned. It was the moment her father broke, the moment he chose to carry the weight alone. Gasps again. One board member stood. "I want him out," she said, "effective immediately." Another chimed in. "I second it." Maxwell laughed. A dry, bitter sound. "You think this changes anything?" he snapped. "I built this company with your father, Declan." "While you played at being a boy CEO," Declan stood, "my father left you a legacy to protect, not to exploit." Maxwell's face twisted. "Your father was a fool, spending millions on unproven treatments, giving away innovation. I gave this company direction." Declan's voice dropped. "No, you gave it fear." 2 FBI agents stepped forward. Maxwell Donovan, "You are under arrest for embezzlement, fraud, obstruction of justice, and witness coercion." Maxwell tried to speak again, but the cuffs clicked, and just like that, the room fell quiet. Declan turned to the board. "I will not pretend this company has not failed in the past, but we are not what Maxwell made us." He looked at Emma. "We will honor truth, and we will rebuild." Emma nodded, her eyes still damp, not from pain now, but from relief. Later that day, she stood beside Declan on the steps of the courthouse. Microphones surrounded them. Emma held up the framed photo of her father. The press snapped pictures. "I speak today, not just as the daughter of Thomas Carter," she said, "but as someone who watched a man carry guilt he did not earn, for a lie he did not write." She paused. "My father died, with a tarnished name, but today, that name is cleared." Declan stepped beside her. "We will donate the recovered funds to the Skylar Shaw Foundation for Youth Advocacy," he said, "in her name, and in the name of those who were silenced." The crowd clapped, cameras flashed, but Emma was no longer listening. She looked up at the sky, at the soft blue of afternoon, and whispered, "We did it, Dad." That evening, back at the estate in Aspen, the house was quiet again, but this time it did not feel empty. Declan stood by the window. Emma approached him. He turned. "I thought I would feel victorious," he said, "but all I feel is tired." She nodded. "That is what the truth costs sometimes." He looked at her. "You could go now. Your promise is fulfilled." She smiled. "Maybe." He searched her face. "But you are still here." "I am." A pause. Why she stepped closer. "Because I want to be." He took her hands in his. "I brought you here for all the wrong reasons. And I stayed," she said, "for all the right ones." They stood in silence. Then Declan reached into his coat, pulled out a small box. "I had this made," he said, "a real one, not a contract, not a clause." He opened it, a ring, simple, elegant, with a tiny sapphire on either side of the diamond. Emma blinked. "It looks like the lake," she whispered. He nodded. "Will you stay?" "Not for a year." "But for a life." Tears slid down her cheek. She said nothing, just took the ring from the box and slid it onto her own finger. He smiled. "I guess that is a yes." She laughed softly, then kissed him. No contracts, no debts, just love. Spring came late to Aspen that year. The last snow melted slowly, as if reluctant to leave. But the lake was no longer frozen, and neither were their lives. Emma stood on the terrace of the east wing, watching children run across the lawn. Laughter echoed across the stone path leading to the music conservatory, the newest building on the estate. Inside, rows of upright pianos filled a bright open room. Windows overlooked the lake. On the walls hung framed photos, Skylar playing violin, a younger Declan reading beside her, a single quote etched in gold script above the entry. "The truth cannot be silenced. Neither can music." It was opening day of the Skylar Shaw Center for Youth Arts and Advocacy. Tuition-free music lessons, mental health support, safe space for any child who needed more than the world had offered. Declan joined Emma on the terrace. "You built this," he said quietly. She turned to him. "No," she said, "we built this." He handed her a warm mug of tea. Their fingers brushed, but the electricity was no longer uncertain. It had become familiar. "What will you play at the dedication ceremony?" he asked. She smiled. "I was thinking something by Skylar." She would have liked that. They stood in silence, watching the children gather inside. Earlier that morning, Declan had spoken at the town press conference. He had told the truth. All of it. About Maxwell, about the cover-up, about how the company had failed his sister, and many like her, and how they would do better. No lawsuits, no damage control, just truth and reparation. It had stunned the media, but more than that, it had changed the tone. From scandal to redemption, now donations poured in, and a once cold billionaire was learning to smile. Emma took a sip of her tea. The wind lifted strands of her hair across her cheek. Declan reached to brush them back, then let his hand linger. "You have changed me," he said. She leaned into his palm. "No," she whispered. "You changed yourself. I just refuse to let you forget who you were." Inside the music room, a soft melody began to play. A student practicing scales. Emma closed her eyes. "I forgot how much I missed that sound." Declan nodded. "Music makes a house feel alive." They walked inside together. Marian greeted them with a rare, full smile. Even she had softened in the last few months. Emma had learned that kindness, even in small doses, had ripple effects. Harold stood by the piano, showing a young girl how to hold her posture. His hands trembled now, but his voice was steady. He looked up when Emma entered. "She is picking it up fast," he said, gesturing to the girl, "just like Skylar." Emma stepped beside the child. "May I try something?" The girl nodded. Emma sat, placed her hands on the keys. She played something simple, a lullaby, unfinished, her own. The children gathered quietly around her, and the melody became a story of grief, of truth, of forgiveness. Declan watched from across the room. The woman he once saw as a stranger now belonged to every room she walked into. He smiled. That night, they sat by the fireplace. No contracts, no secrets, no distance, just each other. "Do you regret any of it?" Emma asked softly. He looked at her. "I regret not trusting sooner," he said. "I regret the silence." She nodded. "But not us," he added. "No," she said, smiling. "Not us." The fire cracked quietly. She reached for his hand. "You never asked me to marry you again," she teased. "Not officially." He laughed. "I thought slipping the ring on your finger in the middle of a board meeting counted." She raised an eyebrow. "Try again." He stood, pulled a folded piece of paper from his jacket. "Read from it. Emma Carter, you walked into my life because I needed a solution. But you stayed because I needed saving. You reminded me how to feel. You reminded me how to listen. And you brought back the music." He looked up. "I love you, not because I need you, but because I see you, and I cannot imagine the rest of my life without you in it." Emma was crying before he finished. He knelt. "No ring this time. Just open hands. Will you stay with me?" She nodded, then pulled him to his feet and whispered into his ear, "Yes, for every tomorrow." 3 weeks later, the chapel on the hill bloomed with wildflowers. The ceremony was small, just friends, the children, Marion, Harold, Dr. Chun, and 2 empty chairs at the front, one for Skylar, one for Thomas Carter. Declan wore a soft gray suit, Emma a dress the color of dawn. They exchanged vows written by hand, no cameras, no speeches, just truth and love, and a promise that this time everything would begin from something real. Sometimes, the most powerful decisions are made in silence. Emma did not choose wealth, fame, or comfort. She chose responsibility, love, and truth. And in doing so, she reminded us of something quietly profound, that life is not always fair, but we still have the power to choose who we become in the middle of it. This story is not just about romance. It is about healing what is broken, about standing up for those who no longer have a voice. It is about how grief can harden or soften us, and how love, the honest kind, is not always loud or perfect, but steady and earned, for those of us who have known loss, disappointment, or injustice. This is a reminder that the past does not define us, and that dignity, once lost, can be restored not just with justice, but with kindness. No matter how late in life it feels, it is never too late to speak truth, to mend what was torn, and to choose love, not because we must, but because we still believe in it. Thank you for staying with us until the end of this story. If it touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who may need it, and do not forget to subscribe for more stories that heal, inspire, and connect us. Your support means everything.